Greetings, nerds. This is SNN Nerd. I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
Doing very well, Sarah. How you doing this Thursday evening?
I'm calm. I'm here. I'm looking forward to a 3-day weekend. So
yeah. We do have a 3-day weekend coming up. Happy Martin Luther King weekend. Hopefully, folks will get some time off, and also hopefully you do a day of service in their community as well. A lot of good projects that I'm sure people can come up with. So.
Yeah,
sure.
If they're good human beings, not like me.
I guess for you, let's go shoveling someone's ice off their porch or something.
Jesus, like it's just a lot. I knew how much fell, but seeing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you try, like I was shoveling yesterday because we got a few more inches, and it's like you're just shoveling off a layer of ice, and that's the scary part. It's never the snow; it's always the ice where people freak out.
Yeah.
Because that can lead to a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I know here in North Carolina, we're looking at a potential ice event this weekend. So sort of like, okay, making sure I have everything, and and with ice, at least with snow, you can like do stuff. With ice, the big issues like power outages and stuff. So, but anyway, enough about weather.
Yeah, enough about all of that weather talk. We do have some news to get through. I think The Boys season 3 release date is for June.
Yep, June 3rd, and they'll be releasing the first 3 episodes of the new season.
Okay. Well, it worked for them last time. I mean, this show is amazing, so I kind of wish that they would just like parcel out the pieces, but I think that we got the first 2 episodes last season.
Yeah, I think that was right.
And and there was a reason for that, so I bet there's going to be a good reason why they want to do the first 3.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. I know they had the little teaser with Homelander in that press conference of Starlight, and the detached grin that he had at the night. It was so like creepy. And I've been trying also to watch the 7-on-7s that they've had, the little snippets that they've had on YouTube over the last 7 months as well. So those, I want to say they are done now. I think the last one was, I guess the big thing, Huey had a suit. Who knew? But definitely looking forward to season 3 of The Boys.
Yep. Especially with Ackles.
Yeah.
Quantum Leap reboot. Oh my God. Yeah. Quantum Leap reboot is going to pilot. So that's, I guess, a good thing. I don't know. I'm probably not going to watch that show, but.
Yeah, I will watch it. I mean, it was one of those things that in the late 80s, early 90s, I definitely was a huge fan of. Still, when I get in a nostalgic mood, we'll watch episodes of the show. But this is basically a reboot. Not sure. Sadly, Dean Stockwell passed away recently, so obviously Al won't be a part of this. But it sounds like they are going to have a new crew who are going to be picking up where Sam Beckett left off and trying to find out the mysteries of why Sam disappeared and why he hasn't been able to come back home. And so, so hopefully Scott Bakula will show up, but it'll definitely be a new cast, and it'll be set, in the present day. And as far as 30 years after the original time when Sam stepped into the Quantum Leap Accelerator. So this is one of the things that's been like rumored for years, and it's finally coming to fruition.
Yeah. And we're very used to that. Rumors, fruition, and then cancellation.
Yeah, or not getting picked up for pilot. Yep.
Yeah. They shoot the pilot, and then the pilot is, they're like, yeah, how about not?
Yeah, we're not going to go to series order. We're, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, and then when that happens, cast members change, and I mean, Powerpuff Girls.
There you go. There you go. We know what happened there. Yep.
Head over to Warner Brothers and DC Land. It was announced that The Batman will be PG-13. Not surprised. The Batman, it does not need to be a rated R movie. I never was on board for that. PG-13. This is a movie you want a lot of people to see. I think based on the trailers, they might be able to do some really creepy stuff. I mean, they did it with The Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. But they might be able to make this more edgy without bloodshed or like cursing and stuff. So, not surprised.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised either. I know a lot of people were really hoping that it would be rated R, but you're right. You want to have as broad an audience as you can with this particular film, and Dark Knight was able to do a lot of creepy things, like you said, with a PG-13 rating. So yeah, at this point, the only thing that we're all just kind of holding our breaths on is whether or not it'll still be released on March 4th.
Yeah, I guess I just don't understand. There's sometimes when it's necessary to be rated R, but at the same time, sometimes when movies get the rated R rating, they like push it too far, where it's just like, okay, we get it. Suicide Squad too.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and it just kind of diluted the film to. Well, I guess with the Suicide Squad, I mean, clearly James Gunn had his vision in mind, and that he wasn't able to do in the Marvel universe, because Marvel Disney's want us to keep that as broad as possible. But Suicide Squad being what it is, he really wanted to he really wanted to play in that rated R playground. But I think you're totally right about Batman. We could definitely tell these stories have the same intensity and everything without the gratuitous gore.
Yeah, definitely. And you will not find gore on the potential new CW show that will feature new series and star David Ramsey, who's going to return as Diggle, called Justice You. But this is just funny that they announced this right after last week. We're talking about how CW is up for sale. So who knows if this will ever come to fruition. I mean, a lot of people are starting to wake up and realize the Arrowverse was definitely a thing of the 2010s, and we're in the 2020s. So.
Yeah. And there's no guarantee, I mean, that this will even make it to pilot. I mean, right now it's just still in development. So which is just a curse. Yeah.
I mean, I think, and maybe it's because we follow these items from the moment they're announced through the filming to finally the first episode. So for us, it feels like forever. And then everyone else, when they see the trailer, they're like, "Oh, that's coming out." Oh, we're like, "Yeah, we've been talking about it for 2 years."
Yeah, I completely missed this. One of our listeners actually sent it to me to my personal Twitter account. I was like, "Oh, okay," because my day was nuts today, and it just I saw it. I saw it was buried within another story, and I thought it was possible clickbait. But then once I clicked on it and saw it was from Variety, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is legit." But because we always hear he's like, "Oh, such and such is in development, and so is going to be doing this." So when I first saw it, I did think it was just kind of a clickbaity thing. But then I saw it was actually in all the trades, and that it really was in development. And also part of the deal was Ramsey was going to direct the pilot if it does indeed get a pilot order, as well as he signed on to continue to direct other additional shows in the DC verse, I guess the CW verse, is I guess what they're calling it now. So so he'll continue to do that. And I was thinking about the show with how it was described as like Justice U, and the first thing I actually thought about was, all right, they're just doing a knockoff of the Boys spinoff, because the Boys spinoff is also doing a college-based show where we are going to vault you. So I was like, that was my first thought. And then my second thought was, well, this makes sense for Diggle, just how they're using him now in these shows, because he's become like this mentor for all the other characters, when he's been like popping up on Batwoman and The Flash and even Superman and Lois. So I was like, okay, well, I could see how they're trying to carry this forward with him training 5 young metas to enter the superhero life.
Yeah. We'll see if both shows actually happen.
Yeah.
I feel as though we heard about the Boys for 2 years now.
Yeah. I think they have been actually casting people. So we'll see but you're right. It's like, okay, when is this going to really happen here?
Maybe it'll happen before or after we ever see Gotham PD. I don't know.
Yeah, or Gotham Knights.
Or Gotham Knights. One thing that we have been tracking and we have seen a pilot for that dropped earlier this week is Naomi season 1 kicked off. And this was, and I think we've had this discussion a few times. Well, you know me, I'm never a fan of pilots.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say it, I like, this didn't do anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, we're setting up like like, this is just, I don't know. There was never a moment. I like the integration of Superman without having it be in this actual, like, connected to Superman and Lois.
Yeah.
The idea that she's adopted, and so that's why she prefers that superhero over all others, and then they hint at a potential other connection. But the other thing that kind of bothered me was something that I continue to have a problem with in regards to Stargirl. Do you know what I'm going to say?
Oh, you can go in so many directions. I'll let you go ahead and drop it.
Okay. This shouldn't surprise you, Will, because you've heard me say this complaint about Courtney on Stargirl way too many times. So Naomi is a bit too perfect. Like a bit too, she's the geek, but she's also the cool kid, and she also has a lot of people attracted to her, and she has a good family life, but she's missing something. And I don't know, I don't get a sense of the underdog here. There's something about the way they set up this character where I'm just like, okay, so she's gonna get cooler. Is what we're going for? But I mean, this was just the first episode, so hopefully more will come. But those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I think so. I enjoyed the pilot. I really did. It so Naomi is a relatively new character in the DC Comics lore. I mean, she was first introduced in 2019. So it's not like we have 50 years worth of like source material to really go from. I mean, right now there's only 6 comic books, and I think the second series volume is going to drop, I think, later this year. So I did start reading the comics, and they're pretty solid. And just to sort of get familiar with the character a little bit, because I really didn't know much about her before, other than she was adopted. And I guess one of the interesting things that they're doing with this show is there's no other superheroes in this universe.
Right.
And so Superman really was, it was her favorite comic book character, and I like that moment where she was in the comic book shop, and of course, like you said, she is the popular kid and possibly bisexual, so she was like flirting with girl in the comic book shop, and then also, we have her other boyfriend that they went out on a few dates. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you that it is possible that this show could fall into the Stargirl trap where there's no rough edges to Naomi at this point. But debate club champ. I mean, there's all those elements. So I think the pilot did what it was. I think it achieved the one thing as far as just sort of setting up all the players that we are going to see, and like D, the Zumbadu, the used car salesman, and clearly he has that connection with Naomi, and same with D as well. That somehow all these people from another Earth all came to this little town in Oregon on or about March 14th of 2014. Or they were already there, and of course then her capsule came, and that was her, that was the adoption date. But I think it was good. I mean, it was Ava, I think has potential here with this show. I mean, hopefully it doesn't go the route of the Wrinkle in Time movie that she made. Because
I think there's potential. It's the first episode.
Yeah.
A new character. They got a lot of players. I hope to God they have more players to set up though, because between what D and Zumbaba, I was just like, these just are creepy guys.
Yeah.
And just staring at Naomi, and for some reason they keep like wandering up to her, and you're just like, dude, she's a kid.
Yeah.
This isn't, why are you putting yourself in I don't know. There were some weird moments where I'm just like, this probably could have been written a little bit better to make it like less as though there's only 5 adults in this town and they all happen to know Naomi.
Yeah.
But one aspect that I did like, and I hope they delve into more to complicate this world, is this is the first time we've seen a superhero like on a military base.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To an extent. And so I like that aspect of her life being a military brat.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that she's not only adopted, but she's kind of being taken all over the place. But I do get a sense that this has been home for a while. So I'm not sure how much of the moving and constantly getting pulled to other locations they're going to do. But we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought that was a very good dynamic that they just set up between the military brats and the townies, and to sort of set up that interpersonal conflict with all the characters, and maybe we'll start to see like some imperfect spots, or as her powers start to manifest itself, but I could definitely see either it'll go one of two ways. It'll go, like you said, the way that we've seen Courtney that first season be like too perfect, or hopefully maybe we'll see it evolve with how Courtney was in season 2. But even at that, she was still, even though she was perfect, and they tried to like have her have shades of gray, she was still at the end of the day like perfect Courtney. And so so maybe Naomi's imperfections will be just learning how to use her powers and her growth as she learns more about herself and in this town. So
very out.
Yeah, or her relationships with other people, with some of with some of the other kids.
Yeah, I think it's similar to what we were talking about last week in regards to Spider-Man. If you're gonna be like this really good, all together kind of, or not all together, but this kid who has these powers, I think maybe imperfection is not the right word. Maybe it's more of like, I need them to lose something. Yes, she's adopted and she lost her parents. Tragic. We don't know her parents.
Right. Yeah.
and she got adopted to what looks like to be a really healthy family.
Yes.
So it's just, if they're going to really push that, I suspect. So I'm wondering how much that will get across to the viewers and really like make the character more three-dimensional.
Yeah.
Because of that. So, but
I agree. I mean, long and short of it, this show, I mean, it was entertaining. It was an entertaining hour, and I liked it. But I think if it's going to be something that is going to sustain me, then they've got to definitely do some more things to make it stand out. Because right now it's just kind of, like you said, just too perfect. Reminds me, one of the things we're concerned about was it going to be, like you said, replicate some of the bad parts of Stargirl, which like Courtney being too perfect, and that was that's one of the things that is doing right now. So it's just, there are a lot of shows out there and a lot of content moving right now. I mean, we got Peacemaker, for example, dropping today, and other shows that'll be continuing on other networks. So it's, I think they're definitely, hopefully, as the series progresses, it will start to get its own voice and not be so, and take some chances, and so it can really stand out, because otherwise it's going to get lost in the shuffle. Yeah,
I mean, especially because Superman and Lois came back without missing a beat.
Oh yeah, I was like, that show was I really enjoyed the kickoff for this season.
It was the last show I watched last night. I wasn't going to watch it, and then I thought to myself, you know what? I have time. I'm just going to sit down and watch it. It was honestly between Naomi and Boba Fett, I was doing other things and watching it. So I was only half engaged for most of those. We'll get into Boba Fett and why later. But with Superman and Lois, I really sat down, and there were times when I could have done something else during it, but I didn't feel like I wanted to, because I was very fascinated by what was going on. And the thing about this episode, very, very limited fight sequences, very limited Superman action. It was a story. It was a continuation of where we left off with Lois. And this is a thing that continues to surprise me about this show. Yes, the show is called Superman and Lois, but my God, if Lois was written differently or played by a different actress, this show would not work. Okay. Like, I think this show works mainly because of the actress, Bitsy, and just how that character is written. Everything she did in this episode, I was just like, this is great. This is why we really like season 1. They're continuing it. And it's nothing against the other actors. Everybody's on their A game in this show. I mean, the kid actors could up it, but I'll always have issues with the actors. But it's just, I was just surprised. The fact that they hinted about her own mom abandoning her, and how she's trying to sort through her feelings in regards to Natalie with that abandonment. So we know that we might see her mother in the future, which would be interesting. I mean, I didn't really care for the boys wanting to have sex with their girlfriends. I was like, okay. But at the same time, like, this show kind of has to have that to balance it out, I guess, to make it more of an all-around family show, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. You're right. This Bitsy as Lois is really the heart to me of the show. And there was a 3-month time jump, and sometimes time jumps in TV shows work well, sometimes they don't, but what I liked about the time jump, and you nailed it with your analysis that you started out. They started with Lois and the issues that when we left the Kents and Lanes, the whole issue with Natalie.
Yep.
And all her feelings. And I don't want to repeat what you said, but I mean, it really, I mean, thinking back to season 1, that episode where we learned that Clark and Lois had that miscarriage, and just the sheer emotions of that, and then the through line with with Natalie at the end of season 1, and then a very realistic thing where Lois was angry at Clark because somehow, and it's not a rational thing, but it was she felt in some ways he's responsible with it. It was like how real couples like interact, as far as when there may be, your partner may be like sniping about something, and the other partner's like, and we had that in this episode where Clark was talking to Lana and to Lana's husband as well about what's going on, and and it was that it's the type of conversations that friends have, and whenever their significant other or whatever is like upset about something, and you're like, I don't know what's going on, why they're sniping or whatever, and then and it's not you think it's one thing, but actually it's something else. And they dealt with that honestly in the show. Like Lois is like, the reason why I'm upset, Clark, is because of what you talked about, which is her being abandoned. And and I like the way they handle that maturely instead of drawing it out for drama's sake.
Yeah, and it also wasn't what even the viewers were expecting.
Mm-hmm.
Like we only know General Lang, but we never, or General Lane, but we never think about the mom and the fact that the mom was absent all season. So you kind of think like, oh, she's gonna admit it's about Natalie, and she did, but then they twisted it with that curveball, which is again gonna foreshadow a potential rival later on this season.
Yeah,
because you wouldn't drop a nugget like that out of nowhere.
Exactly.
But on top of that, then you have all of the moments between Natalie and Henry, and the realization that, yeah, they are not in a good spot. And man, Henry was about ready to make his peace with it, move on. And then Natalie drops down to earth and is like, oh shit, this is not going to be as easy. It is curious why she wanted to stay, even though everything was so hard.
Yeah.
But they've decided to stay. And maybe it's just because even though everything is different, it's still somewhat familiar with them. And so they're just grasping to try to retain any sort of part of their previous life. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
And then the other thing that I was very small bit, definitely foreshadowing for the rest of the season and what Clark / Superman will be dealing with. And this whole idea, like trying kind of being put at odds between protecting just America versus protecting Earth. I thought that was clever.
Yeah.
Curious to see where that leads as well.
Yeah. They went full in on the new slogan we learned at DC Fandom of truth, justice, and a better tomorrow. And I was like, oh, well, I like what they did there as far as weaving that into the story. I mean, of course, they did it, obviously with the comic book, but they also in live action are weaving that into it and the allegiances in it. And we've seen some of these themes before in both DC and Marvel. Like when you think about the Sokovia Accords and the MCU, and then with the Batman v Superman, I think when he was on trial, at the congressional hearing, and people holding him accountable for his actions,
right.
who's he accountable to? So I'm glad they're bringing that element into this universe as well, as far as who is Superman accountable to, and the tension between Clark or Superman and Lieutenant Anderson. It really, with the whole thing, like, well, couldn't you just drop the submarine on U.S. soil? I mean, it was, that it's definitely setting it up, and then of course with the metas that the Army had developed. I mean, we saw hints of that, I guess, last season with the lab with Morgan Edge, with the Kryptonians that they had. He was developing with his Kryptonian army, with the I guess the souls from people from there. But now we're seeing the Army. I guess that was probably one of General Lane's contingency plans, and also right. It's nice parallels to like what we saw from with Edge and thinking about Henry's world, where they had these armies of Supermen, and basically leading to the downfall of that Earth. And now we're starting to see that being developed by the United States here on this Earth. So so is it is it one of those things where this like once the genie's out of the bottle with these people, what problems could come from that? So not only do you have so there's that piece, and of course Clark is still getting whammied from his fights with Edge, so they didn't drop that. So those those are definitely like great things that they're going to be playing with throughout this season. So they really set up some really interesting conflicts for the family.
They did a lot of setup, but what I really appreciated was it felt like there was momentum, and it was also like what you mentioned about how we literally just start exactly with the same scene where we left off, and then they do the flat movement forward, but it was more focused on the emotions of the characters as opposed to the fallout for with Edge. It was more about just that emotional idea of Natalie being there and what does it all mean. And then, of course, the town itself is still getting over everything that happened with Edge. Yep. And it's still Smallville, so they're still in the state of being a small town in financial crisis and jobs and economy and all of that. So we have some movement there, and it just, I don't know, it felt, like we just got done talking about Naomi and how I feel about pilots. First episodes of seasons in general, for me, they always just feel a little bit slower, a little bit more expositional. But this one, I felt like it was maybe a mid-season, like they've been on hiatus for a few weeks and we just came back.
Yeah, exactly. It definitely did not lose any momentum with the time off. And you're right. I mean, it just really, I like the way you said that. I mean, it really didn't just, it just picked up. And I'm glad you brought up the what's going on in the town.
Right. And
all the issues there, and Lana helping the person run for mayor, and which eventually she's going to be the mayor herself. But those small town politics, because I think what it does, it helps ground the show.
Right.
But we're still in a superhero world. But it helps it remain grounded outside of Clark and Lois. Because yes, Clark and Lois, we're definitely getting that dynamic of Superman having to have the talk with his sons, and Clark awkwardly like admitting that he was a virgin until he was older than probably both his boys will be whenever that and have so you have those kind of things that ground it just with those characters. But I think by integrating the town into it really creates a good vibe of just overall groundedness. Yes, there's superheroes and people doing all their things, and yeah, Superman shows up in our town, and then fights.
Well, it's a town that is in a world with a known superhero.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different than the town that they're trying to set up with Naomi, which is more trying to make it like a real life town.
Right.
Who's just gonna all of a sudden a kid with powers is gonna come out of the woods.
Yeah. Yeah.
And theoretically, kids like men with powers have been walking around,
right,
doing stuff, pulling Superman stunts. Anyway, we already talked about that show.
Yeah.
We have one more show to get to.
Oh yeah. But one last thing before we leave Superman and Lois, we can't drop off that show without talking about the ending as well. With the little tease there at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't know what that is.
yeah. So yeah. Well. I will fill in the gap for folks who may have missed it. And it's Doomsday.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was confirmed by the showrunner. I mean, he went ahead and said, yes, it's Doomsday. We'll get a little bit more teasing next episode, and we'll get the full reveal on the third episode that Doomsday is there. But apparently, I guess this is just villain A, because he said there's something more coming down the pipeline that will be another challenge for our hero later in the season. So, but yeah, that sequence at the end was actually a homage to a cover from a previous Superman comic. But
yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it's only villain A because, yeah. But I'm also not surprised considering Doomsday always comes with other villains.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and when I realized, I was thinking that I actually thought about Krypton.
Yeah.
Once again, yeah. we come back to Krypton.
Always.
Yeah.
All right. So this will be a really short save. So okay. I was thinking about it today. Here's the thing. I keep for some reason after watching these 3 episodes of Boba Fett, I thought back on my reaction initially to Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
First season, it took me a while to get on board. Even though we meet the cute little baby Yoda in the very beginning, like it took me a while. And season 2 far better than season 1 of that show.
Yes.
So now to get Boba Fett, and for there to be like little to no dialogue in the first episode, to just feel like there's always walking. There's a lot of freaking walking, and I'm like, this is not Lord of the Rings. Why is there so much walking happening? Yeah, and to get this episode, which like it's just boring. It's so incredibly boring, and I kind of felt better about my opinion of this show when I was listening to people who are diehard Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
Also talk about it and have the same comment. There's just something there isn't anything that's happening that's causing a lot of intrigue. I mean, you can kind of see what they're doing. The fact that, yeah, he's taken over, but like whenever a new person comes into power, they forget, oh, now you actually have to rule. Now you actually have to protect this claim you have over this piece of land, which is always easier said than done. They tried to do this in Game of Thrones towards the end of it. So it's we've kind of seen these kind of issues occur before. Of course, this is the first time technically in Star Wars. So hopefully that's what's taking so long. They're just doing a lot of setup. But I'm so checked out of this show. It's sad.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, I've heard that a lot. I mean, I know just I've heard. I mean, I was like listening to Harloff today talk about the 3rd episode, and how he was he's like diehard Star Wars, and he's like split on it. So the first episode, a lot of people were very critical of it, and I did, like you, I did go back and like, it's like let's slow roll everybody, because everybody there was the big reveal of Baby Yoda at the end of the first episode of Mandalorian, but there was a lot of grumbling that first season. Like, was the show, like, speaking of walking, there was a lot of walking in the first season of Mandalorian. And so that was one of those things where I was just like, okay, let me just sort of see where this is going. I saw where they were in the first episode, where they were setting up, really trying to humanize the Tusken Raiders, because whenever we have seen this race, we've always seen them. Well, we think about Attack of the Clones, where they kidnap Shmi Skywalker, and they are just these brutal sand people who just don't have, they're just savages. And and then as we saw them in season 2 of The Mandalorian, we learned that they really are the ancestral indigenous people of Tatooine. And so when we get to Boba Fett, they just really fleshed that out even more, and especially in the second episode, where we really get deeper. I mean, we learned a little bit about their culture in Mandalorian season 2. We really learned a lot more about them as Boba trains them, but also they train him in the ways of fighting, which we see that adapted into his fighting style when he took out the bikers, for example. So I liked that aspect. So for me, clearly the standout episode for me so far has been season 2, episode 2 of season 1 for Boba Fett. I think this show, to me, when they've had the flashbacks to the past, has been much more interesting to watch than some of the present day stuff, because the present day stuff is like you said. I mean, I was thinking the same thing. He's basically like the dog chasing after the bone, and then once he finally gets it, he doesn't know what to do with it. Yeah. I mean, and it really was. I mean, that's been illustrated every single time, and also he's just like every single time. I mean, I know he's trying to change things up, where he is not like Jabba, where Jabba would be like, kill them all, and he's like, nope, I'm gonna give you another chance. Nope, I'm gonna give you another chance, and so he's trying to like be benevolent, Boba, and so we're trying to show some evolution from what everyone assumed was going to be this the badassery thing that we've all had our preconceived notions about what a show about Boba Fett or a movie about Boba Fett would be like.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because yesterday I was thinking I prefer the third episode the most, because the flashbacks, they have not been doing anything for me. That's usually the time I go to the bathroom. I'm just like, okay, it's a flashback. Just because what I noticed essentially in the first episode is the flashbacks are not really adding to anything to the present day story, or they haven't, for me at least. And a lot of this has been about politics, and I'm like, I don't know half the words you guys are talking about, so I'm already checked out. That's something else that I don't think either season 1 of Mandalorian or season 2 or season 1 of Boba Fett is doing a good job, to where the casual viewer can get on board with this character and this world in a very short amount of time. I feel like a lot of the dialogue used to set up these worlds, you have to already, like, the assumption is you already know some of the races, some of the figures that they're speaking about, right? Which yeah, there's definitely an audience section for that, and then there's me. And I'm just like, I've seen the movies. I still have no idea about 75% of what's going on right now, but yeah, sure, cool.
Yeah. I mean, there were some nice callbacks. I mean, like, some things were like clear. I mean, something like the Order of the Night Wind. That's completely new, and so it wasn't something that was pulled out of Legends or anything like that. That was new. Black Chrysanthemum. Well, I mean, that's a character that was pulled from the Darth Vader comic. So yeah, so that's one of those things where okay, but it is familiar because it's a Wookiee. So people, oh, that's hey, that's Black Chewbacca. So I mean, maybe so there's elements of the story, but I definitely get your point that if you're casual Star Wars fan or I catch the movie Star Wars fan and I don't get into the comics or some of the animated stuff like Clone Wars or Bad Batch or anything like that. Yeah, there's definitely, I think there is some kind of like inside baseball that does happen within the Star Wars universe at this point.
Right.
And I think it can be very, very hard for some viewers who may not be as steeped in that to really get, like you said, really get into it as much. It doesn't resonate for them as much. But like I said, I mean, it's an okay series. You're right. It's not like appointment television like the way Mandalorian season 2 in particular got to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's one of those things where they're the victims of their own success now because everyone is expecting. But even I think back to season 2 of Mandalorian. I mean, I know there were a few episodes where folks, like whenever they went to the one world where they were delivering the pregnant mother.
Oh yeah.
People were like, what's going on here? So
we weren't. We liked that episode.
Yeah, we did.
Another episode that everybody else was raving about where we're like, what? Why?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so I think at its core, I think part of the reason why this series is not like clicking with a lot of folks is how it was kind of sold, because the way the trailers, and I didn't watch many of them, but the ones I did watch, it seemed to be, it was going to be more action packed. We were going to get a lot of, Boba's the overlord of Tatooine now, but we're going to see badass Boba instead of benevolent Boba.
Yeah. Well, he's going to rule and be ambivalent and, I don't know, have very few interesting interactions with
people. Well, the other thing that gets me too is like, and maybe this is part of the evolution of Boba, is he takes his helmet off like all the time. And I get that, Tamara Morrison is the star of the show and he's not true Mandalorian. So, of course he's taking the helmet off. But if you want to keep that mystique of the ruthless bounty hunter, and then you take your head off, your gear off all the time. I mean, it just to me it takes away that menacing factor that he could have. And I know Fennec is there to be the muscle now, and he's really there to be the leader and all. And I still, the way things are going, I think Fennec's probably going to like turn on him. It was at this point it would not. I will be disappointed if she doesn't turn on him.
Right. Yeah, that's what a lot of people are predicting.
Yeah.
We shall see, or hopefully we'll see. I don't know if I can watch this. I will do my best. I do know that because of our content level, next week we won't be talking about Boba Fett. We will be talking about Batwoman, though. So stay tuned for that. And on that note, Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will and Polk on Twitter. That's WILLMPOLK.
And you can find me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at SNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and our website is www.snnnerdpodcast.com. But most importantly, rate, follow, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.